Good evening, and welcome to Altos, a weekly news and current affairs program produced by the Catholic News and broadcast on Trinity TV and state-owned TTT. I'm Neil Parsonlal. Here's a look at this week's top stories. New hope for the homeless as Port of Spain Mayor and Archbishop pay a visit to Duncan Street facility. They hear from the homeless about their concerns. His Grace urges students entering university to anchor themselves in faith. Pan aficionados happy that Pan is rising. They hope it will become an integral part of church music. And later, we focus on the Venezuela elections and the migrant situation as we speak with Chair of the Catholic Commission for Social Justice, Father Curtis Poyer. And now for our top story. His Grace Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon and Port of Spain Mayor Chinua Alain have heard firsthand from the homeless about some of the challenges they face. Both paid a visit to the Ave Maria House on Duncan Street, Port of Spain recently. The facility, operated by Living Water Community, is a vital lifeline for those facing homelessness and hardship, offering not just food and clothing, but shelter and hope. Kaylan Jordan and Andre Burton spoke to officials there about the challenges they face and a ray of hope that has emerged out of the recent visit.
Breakfast and lunch are simple but fulfilling. Sandwiches, tea, and sometimes a hearty pilau or soup. Despite these efforts, the challenges are immense.
The younger ones, well, they're having challenges with different things, drugs and different things. But the senior person who is more mature crowd that come to us, they definitely look out for help. They come and they ask for you to really journey with them to get those who work in different places, WASA and other places, and never got their the pension and all those kind of thing, And they ask how to get a gratuity.
Ave Maria House currently serves between 70 and 85 people daily, a number that has decreased from over 100 before the pandemic. However, Hunt notes a troubling trend.
Long ago, you would see here full up with men. Now you're seeing ladies, you're seeing younger guys.
Recent discussions with the mayor of Port of Spain, Chinua Alain, and Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon have brought new hopes. The mayor was impressed with the facility and hinted at potential support to enhance their services.
And that is good, because I am thinking about challenging him to help us with getting the social worker upstairs, because he may have, I know people that could help us. And when the Archbishop and the mayor was here, some of them say, I want all you to know. I don't know if all you know that is a big difference here. The majority of people here is homeless people, not vagrants. They're trying to drive that to say that they could see about themselves if they get support.
Despite the challenges, the community support continues. Alwyn's father, Ordain, has been a dedicated volunteer, providing hot bay leaf and lemon tea for the past 8 years. Alwyn told Altos, while women's clothing donations are plentiful, men's clothes are scarce, which complicates its efforts to provide for everyone. I am Kaylan Jordan for Catholic News, Altos.
On Sunday, August the 4th, students and their families gathered at the Pro-Cathedral of Our Lady of Perpetual Help in San Fernando for a special Mass and Expo organized by the Office of Youth Ministry. This event aimed to prepare and bless students entering university both locally and abroad. Delivering the homily at the Mass, Archbishop Gordon reminded students of the importance of staying connected to their faith as they embarked on this new chapter in their journey.
Please do not forget the source. Anchor yourself in Jesus Christ. Anchor yourself in prayer. And anchor yourself in the tradition of the church.
His Grace offered a special blessing to all students gathered and had this message for those present.
You know that you're privileged. Most of the young people your age don't get to a 3-level education. Do you know that? You're in a minority who get to a 3-level education. The role of privilege is responsibility.
The annual Mass hosted by the Office of Youth Ministry was extended this year to include an expo to equip students with tools for university life. A few attendees shared their experience with Altos.
There was a booth on mental awareness, on mental health for students starting university as well as for adults. So that was really informative because we got some tips on how to improve our mental health and keep our mental health stable, as well as there were booths on having a healthy lifestyle, exercise, eating healthy.
My brother is going to university now, and I'm glad that he has the opportunity to see the mental health, food, nutrition, as well as how to meditate while at campus. There's so much noise around that you kind of forget how to sit and reflect. Yeah, so I really appreciated this.
Presentations were also done by mental health planner and creative arts therapist Carleen Braffett, medical doctor Gabrielle Alexander, and Carolyn De La Rosa from Jobs TT. I am Kaylan Jordan for Catholic News, Altos.
Roman Catholic priest Father Robert Christo has lamented the spate of crime in the country, saying it is born out of greed for material things. Roger Sant reports on the Mass held last Sunday in Kumaka, a small community in the cluster of Santa Rosa and Malabar.
This is church. This is heaven. You can take us in the middle of the mountain, 2 hours from the highway into the road in every greenbaum. You have to take the Mass when no one has taken it. You have to become what you live and evangelize Eucharistically.
Delivering the homily to a small gathering in Kumaka last Sunday, Father Christo observed that as Roman Catholics who receive the body and blood of Christ, we have to believe in the Eucharist and to become like Christ, having shared in that body and blood, and to go out and spread the word. Instead, he said, the world is now messed up and may no longer want to work for things driven by greed. They resort to crime to get to what they want.
They will shoot you, they will chin. Greediness and no respect for human being. Total disregard. I want that chair shelf and I don't care. And if I kill you, I want to shoot. It's called greed.
Alluding to the opening of the Olympics in Paris, France, where the Last Supper of Christ was part of a denigrating display, Father Christo urged Roman Catholics to fight for their faith and stop fighting for the things of the world that are temporary.
A brand name don't define you. So we have an imitation of that's going to be the original. Feeling important. We hunger for that. We hunger for acceptance. On Facebook, they say, I like how many likes, followers. Go ICU. You will know how much likes you have.
I am Roger Sant reporting for Catholic News Altos.
A small group of Venezuelan migrants converged outside the United States Embassy in Port of Spain and then made their way outside Archbishop's house last Saturday, demanding an intervention in the recently held elections, which Nicolas Maduro claims to have won, but which the U.S. does not recognize. Local migrants say they do not believe that Maduro won the elections. Venezuela is a deeply Catholic country, and the protesters carried images of the Virgin Mary as they called for an end to dictatorship and for electoral transparency. Spokesperson for the group, Ruth Albornoz, who says she has been living in Trinidad for the last 22 years, said they were concerned about a fresh wave of people fleeing Venezuela if there is no resolution.
Concerns are that if the situation is not favorable to our opposition leader and our elected president, more people are going to flee Venezuela and they're going to come here. And that is going to create chaos and more problems with migrants on education, on health, on food, on rent, etc., etc., etc.
Albornoz said they want the Trinidad and Tobago government to make a clear statement on the outcome of the election. She said while there was a deal with the Maduro regime on the Dragon Field, the government should not be silent on the outcome of the election. However, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has said that this country will continue to maintain its position of neutrality on the matter. Later on, in Altos, we will deepen that conversation on Venezuela and the migrant situation with our guest, Chair of the CCSJ, Father Curtis Poyer. Archbishop Emeritus Robert Rivas says he wept for the pain caused by the destruction of the cut-stone Church of the Immaculate Conception on the island of Mayru in the southern Grenadines during the recent passage of Hurricane Beryl. Archbishop Rivas led a walk for Mayru last Saturday morning that started at the St. Fimbas Church in Diego Martin. He said it was inconceivable and incomprehensible that a 94-year-old gem would have been wiped out by the hurricane and robbed the people of Mayru of their treasure. Archbishop Rivas recalled when he was appointed the first bishop of Kingstown in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in October 1989, the Church of the Immaculate Conception was the first place he celebrated Mass in the southern Grenadines, and therefore the church is close to his heart, and he just could not stand by and do nothing, hence the walk. He said he was pleased with the response. An estimated 200 persons took part in the walk, which ended at the Church of the Nativity in Crystal Stream, Diego Martin, where they gathered for praise, worship, and benediction. Officials say $50,000 as the target was easily exceeded. It's time now for us to take a short break, and when we return, we speak with Father Curtis Poyer, Chairman of the Catholic Commission for Social Justice, on the Venezuelan issue and the migrant situation here in Trinidad.
Altos is brought to you with the kind compliments of Rituals Coffee House.
Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying with us. Our guest today is Father Curtis Poyer, a local priest who spent more than 2 decades in the Diocese of Tampico, Mexico, and has had very close contact with Venezuelan migrants who have fled their own country. Father Curtis, welcome to the set.
Thank you.
It's always good it's good to have you back home.
Thank you.
Yes. Tell us your thoughts on the recent outcome of the election in Venezuela and how that is impacting the Venezuelan migrants in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, so let's be, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the program. Let's be careful about the word outcome because there's no official outcome yet. On the day of the election, it was reported that the official regime claimed victory and just over 51% of the votes. But since that time until today, there's no official statement or statistics or publication of the results of the Venezuelan election. So the opposition claims 64-30%, and the official, they also claim victory. And so to say that, what can we say about the outcome? What we could say about is what they say about the outcome, right? So the Catholic Commission for Social Justice, we have aligned ourselves with the concern by the Venezuelan bishops about election transparency.
Okay.
So that means to say there's no official outcome. They're calling for an official outcome. There were all kinds of international observers, and the Venezuelan election system is a kind of a 2-tiered system. It's both by paper ballot and it's also electronic, where you have to compare and contrast the results from the two of them. And just like the American elections with Trump, one day is just not sufficient to make an official claim. But every candidate likes to say, well, I won, and the next one, I won, and so on. But until the electoral board or boards make an official statement and actually show that that's how it's so, it's only then you could come to some kind of a
talk about
conclusion.
an outcome.
Right.
But that uncertainty that attends that nebulousness, so to speak, has resulted in protests in Venezuela. It has resulted in protests here in Trinidad and Tobago. How is that uncertainty then impacting on the migrant Venezuelan population here in Trinidad?
Okay. So what the bishops are stating is they had people on the ground and they observed very carefully that people were saying when they were leaving the polls, as they were being asked, who did you vote for? Without saying whom, they just simply said, well, we are voting for a change and for a new Venezuela. And the people themselves who witnessed and polling station personnel, after the elections, when the opposition started crying that there was corruption in terms of the election results and there's no transparency, they started saying, well, we observed this and we observed that. But what started happening, according to the bishops, is that many of them were harassed, persecuted, and many of the election personnel themselves, officials, they were kidnapped. So that caused a further outcry and it magnified itself. So it is not unfounded, the protest. It is because of people themselves who witnessed and people themselves who said, well, okay, I voted that way, but I didn't hear that in the official statement. So eventually it magnified itself, and in Venezuela, the military and national police got involved. So there's an enormous repression, and that in itself is a statement that things are not looking nice at all.
And how is that translating into the local situation here in Trinidad? You're working, the Catholic Commission is doing a lot of work with the migrant population here. What is the sentiment here in Trinidad and Tobago on the ground amongst that population?
Okay, so to all the people that we spoke to, there's nobody who has any sentiment for the official regime.
The official regime.
They all, and they have families back there who also feed them information. And the tendency is that they all voted somewhere else, not for the official regime. They want to change, they want to go back to Venezuela, they want to rebuild Venezuela, but there are all kinds of interests, right? You have the US interest, then you have the people who on the same day, without having seen the results, congratulated the official regime. You also have that too. So you have international conflicts as well playing out because of Venezuelan election. So the people themselves here, the migrants themselves here, why they fled, just like in Mexico, which is a whole different story of how many hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans passed through Mexico. They would say to you it's because of economic reasons and for persecution, and then sometimes both. That the whole situation looks very, very dim as compared to some hope that they may have had years before.
Yeah. Okay. You were frontally involved in the migrant ministry, as you say. You were in Tampico on and off, but for 31 years, but that's not consecutively. How does that situation compare? You're in Trinidad now, you're seeing the migrant situation here. You in Tampico, you said hundreds of thousands of people passed through there. Give us a sense of that.
Of how it is. All right. So along the US-Mexico border, there are over 2 million people, migrants from all over the world. Okay. More than half of those would be from Central and Latin America, Central and South America, and from the Caribbean as well. Places like Haiti and even Cuba, Jamaica. So when you start seeing so many people crossing Mexico to try to get to the US-Mexico border, and you have opportunities to work with them, to interview them, and you get their stories. So you begin to think differently when you hear the official regime blames the degrading system in Venezuela on what they call Yankee imperialism. American interference and American companies, foreign companies on the domination, and then on the American sanctions. So they blame all the social decadence that you see, they blame it on that. But when you talk to the migrants, they have a different story.
Okay.
They see all kinds of influence in the official regime. They see the strong influence of narco trafficking on, on the official regime. They see great amounts of money passing through the official regime, which doesn't filter down into the population. And so the oil and gas deals are for some, but the whole thing is just a mess, as they would say. And they said they used to believe that everything was due to Yankee imperialism and so on. They used to believe that. But afterwards, they themselves discovered that there was all kinds of corruption and all kinds of self-interest. And there was all kinds of loyalty to, instead of the population, loyalty to a regime or to a person, even a cult-like devotion to a person.
Okay. Father, there's one ray of hope in all of this we see, and insofar as the local situation, where migrant children or migrants, the children of migrants living in Trinidad and Tobago will now have the opportunity to go to school, to be enrolled in our primary and secondary schools come September. How have they responded to that? Has there been a good response?
All right. So we need to be we need to be clear about that situation. So many in Trinidad think that, wrongly, that people just come over from other places and they just walk into the schools. So there's a loud outcry. You don't have places for nationals. How come you're giving places to Venezuelan children and other children who come? That's not the situation at all. People who are here and who have been here and who have passed through a legal process and applying for their children to get into the national educational system, they have to go through a whole procedure, a whole screening procedure. And they have to show through the Ministry of National Security that they're not a threat to anybody else, and other ministries get involved as well. So just imagine all you have is about 100 children, 200 children who might enter the school system out of so many thousands that you're talking about, right? We're talking about perhaps over 100,000 families or persons or Venezuelans living here. And out of all of that, you're talking about just a few children who might be.
So a very small percentage
a very
of them.
small percentage, right? You're talking about 0.005%. So this perception that Trinidadians have, they're coming to take over our school places, and the ministry doesn't even have money to fix the schools and so on, and how come you're allowing these Venezuelans? That really has no bearing on the reality of the situation.
It's an unfounded fear.
Right.
Okay. Father, we want to thank you at this stage for joining us. There's a lot more that we could talk about, and I'm sure through the work with the CCSG that we will be, as the new chair of the CCSG, we will be talking with you a lot more, from here on in. So thanks very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Looking forward.
Thanks. Thanks very much for staying with us. We'll be right back.
Criminals normally use some simple tactics such as deception, distraction, or ambush. Remember, stay safe, stay alert, stay alive.
Good advice indeed. Last year, the United Nations designated August the 11th as World Steel Pan Day, and the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago passed the necessary legislation for it to be declared the national instrument on July 3rd. From humble beginnings in East Port of Spain and overwhelming social stigma, this instrument has now gained international recognition. Lara Pickford-Gordon looks at the inroads the steel pan has made in the local church.
pianist, arranger, and composer Raymond Ray Holman began playing pan at 13 years with Invaders Steel Orchestra. He remembers the early days when garbage bins were taken to make pans and the instrument was not allowed in church.
When I was a boy, and I was a long time ago, that was frowned upon. Playing pan in church was a no-no, and I always used to say, well, why? Pan is like a fancy instrument. Nobody had an objection to a piano, or violin, or guitar, or an organ. So by the pan, well, it's because of its history, you know, old days, street violence and wars and so on. But that didn't take place in the church.
As a Catholic, Holman is happy that times have changed. He said the sanctity of the church and acoustics makes for a beautiful sound. The pan brings local vibrancy to worship.
Could you imagine Christmas night and no pan in church? Service would be dead. Imagine Easter Sunday and no pan, dead. So it has helped to make the service more lively. It's helped to give the participants better meaning and a fuller enjoyment of what Easter means, what Christmas means, and what every Sunday means.
While the steel pan has featured in performances and masses in parishes, steel bands are rare. The Pity Valley St. Anthony's Valley Angels was formed 10 years ago by Mary Subot, after she was inspired by God in a dream. The parish priest, Father Leo Donovan, gave his blessing to the initiative, and Valley Harp Steel Orchestra gave invaluable support.
The first Catholic group that came in was 14 people. We never knew how to play pan. We didn't know anything about music. But lo and behold, my nephew, Santak, yes, and Southern Santak is his name, and another pan lover, another speaker, the band, he was practicing came forward. And since then, we have been growing in numbers. And lo and behold, that is how the band was born. Today, we can celebrate. We have played in numerous church events.
While they agree that the steel pan can be the vehicle to attract young people back to church, there is concern that the cost of steel pans can run into thousands, which makes them costly for parishes. I am Lara Pickford-Gordon for Catholic News, Altos.
Sweet sounds of the national instrument. We have 5 priests celebrating their anniversaries this week, and one belatedly. We congratulate all of them. Let's see if you see your parish priest.
In this week's issue of the Catholic News, Green Thumb columnist Rihanna Budram extols the benefits of bygone, and Lionel Owen provides an overview of the introduction of pan into our local churches. I am Simone de Luchon, Associate Editor of the Catholic News.
And that brings us to the end of this week's episode of Altos. Remember, you can send your correspondence to us at altos@catholictt.org. And we leave you this week with the youngsters from the music camp in Okono, St. Joseph, showing off what they learned at their music camp. Have a good week, everyone.
Altos was brought to you with the kind compliments of
Rituals Coffee House.